Welcome to the Resiliency of the Human Spirit podcast, where we share all about human triumph for the collective's healing and empowerment. I am your host, Priscilla Hanley. My guest today is Hanan Merabi. Hanan is a mother, nurse leader, author, and founder of Earth Angels nonprofit organization. Born and raised in Ghana, West Africa, and orphaned at a very young age, Hanan always knew that she wanted to help others that were in such desperate need in Ghana. At age 15, she moved to the United States and became a US citizen. In 2012, she founded a nonprofit, Earth Angels, with the dream that she could make a difference in the lives of mothers and babies all around the world. In 2013, when she had a cathartic moment, Hanan coined the term, the legacy is me, realizing she could use her life's many struggles and painful experiences as catalysts for greatness. She believes that we can all write our own legacy, and she does her best to live to her fullest expression in each role that she takes on. Without further ado, I'm going to bring Hanan right now.
Thank you so much, Priscilla, for having me. I'm so happy to be here. This is long overdue. Thank you for the great intro and for sharing your platform with me.
Oh, Hanan, I'm so honored to have you here. So we connected a few months ago where you
Yes.
shared your personal story. And I gotta tell you, wow, you've had a very, let's say, intense, difficult, but so empowering. Your journey has been so empowering. I just want to say, I'm so glad that you're here because you are really the exemplary example of grit and resilience, which is the theme of my podcast, right? Resiliency of the human spirit. So I
Yes.
want to say your human spirit, girl, is really resilient.
This is true. Thank you. So yes, my story, I would say, exemplifies grit and fortitude and resilience. And without those things, I would not be here. So as you said, I was born and raised in Ghana, and unfortunately, my parents succumbed to illnesses both very young. Mother died in her 30s, father died in his 40s, and orphaned 6 kids. And I was the youngest of 6. And I found myself living with my grandma until I was about 15. And then she started ailing. And when that was happening, I needed a home. She needed to find a place for me. So she arranged for me to be adopted by an uncle and aunt in the States. And I moved by myself, did not know this family. I met them one time, and I moved to the States and was with them for 3 years. It did not go well, and I found myself packing my bags right after I turned 18, ran away from home, and was on my own after that. I worked multiple jobs, cleaned houses, worked at McDonald's while I was in school, and graduated by the skin of my teeth. And years later, I was able to become a nurse. It took me about 8 years just because of all the jobs I had to work to put myself through school. After I was a nurse for several years, I had a very traumatic first delivery with my first son. He and I almost didn't make it. And the thought plagued me incessantly for about a year after I had him. What would I have done if I was in Ghana? I knew that I would not have made it. I knew that he would not have made it with his multiple neonatal needs. And the thought just felt right to do something. I didn't know what that was going to look like, but I knew that I had to do something to help others. And so in 2012, I started Earth Angels with a mission to eradicate maternal and infant mortality, one mother and baby at a time. I didn't know what I was doing. I'm just trailblazing here. But I went ahead and took that leap and took that step and started Earth Angels.
So when you left that household, your aunts and uncle's household, where
Yeah.
did you go at like 18? Did you stay with friends? Where did you go?
Yes. Yes. So I had made one of my best friends the last year of high school or so. She and her mom had picked up on the fact that I wasn't happy. I was actually really miserable in this home, and I didn't have I was fed and I had shelter, but I had that was it. There was no money to buy school lunch. There was no money to, do all the extra things. And so I quickly realized I needed some kind of income, even to buy my toiletries, I didn't have. And so my friend and her mom, they cleaned houses on the weekends in Houston. And they said, hey, we'll come pick you up and you can clean with us. And so secretly, I was cleaning houses, I was housekeeping with them. And then her mother got me a job at McDonald's. And so when it was time to leave, they took me in. I stayed with them for about 3 months in a 1-bedroom apartment, but at least I had a job. And for the first time, I was free.
I'm glad that you had your friend to help you, right? Or
Yes,
else
yes,
that
yeah,
would have been bad.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So then what happened next? So after you stayed with your friend and then you started going to school, and then how
Yeah.
did everything play out for you?
So with her, while I lived with my friend, all I was doing was finishing high school because I ran away a couple months before that, before the end of high school. And so it was really difficult. I was sleeping during class for the first time. Before that, I had been a stellar student, but now I was just so spread thin and exhausted. I would go to school all day and then I'd go to the drive-through and work several hours, clean the restaurant down, and then come to school the next morning, half asleep. That's what I meant by the skin on my teeth. I barely made graduation, but I did. And I remember looking into the audience and thinking, gosh, there's nobody here for me. Like it was a very crushing experience. And so after that, I moved to California to be with some family. And that started my journey of what should I do in college? And I changed my major several times. I had several jobs. I mean, you name it, I had it, from retail to door-to-door sales on the streets of LA, selling knives, to, serving, whatever I could do while I was figuring out what I was going to do to take care of myself. And eventually that became nursing. And like I said, it took me 8 years because I was working sometimes 3 jobs. Sometimes I'd be on my way to the third job, changing in the car. That's how much, I just didn't have a moment to breathe, but I got it done.
I want to ask you, what were you feeling when you were doing all this? What was your emotional state like? It seems hopeless, but did you feel hopeless or did you feel like, I'm just doing this, but things are going to get better? What was your emotional state?
I was blessed with this certain grit, as we said. I was just, for lack of a better way to say it, born this way, that I was just going to get it done. I was just going to get it done. I mean, there were moments where I was very, down and sad, being at my graduation with nobody there, when I have this huge family back home and here I was alone graduating. Moments like that were really difficult, or having to work 3 jobs, thinking, gosh, how did I get here? I had 2 great parents who were doing great things, and suddenly I have nothing. And the people that were supposed to help me were wolves in sheep's clothing. And so there were lots of moments where I felt down and maybe even a little depressed, but there was no choice for me. It was never an option to stay down. It was never an option. It was innate. It's not like I had, my story is different because I didn't have that supportive figure that a lot of people will say, well, then I met so and so and they pulled me up and they told me I was better than, and I, made a difference. Or then I met this boss who changed my life. Or no, I did not have that. I did not have the, knight in shining armor. I did not have the light at the end of the tunnel. It was self-belief, and that I was constantly self-mothering. You'll get through this. You'll pass through this. It'll pass. It'll be fine, constantly. And that is how I made it, was self-belief and constant self-reassurance.
When the dark days came over you, did you turn to any healing modalities or, like books or teachings or anything like that to help you pull through those dark times?
Yeah. I have what I call a term I coined in my, maybe 18 or 19, and that is the art of juicing. The art of juicing is when you extract from everybody that you meet, good and bad, and that to juice means that you can learn something from everybody that you meet, regardless of age, regardless of status. And I took my own advice in that I constantly was learning from others, constantly picking the brains of elders that I met, getting wisdom wherever I could. And so I slowly started to develop my own modalities of coping, of just knowing how to sort of dig down and find self-confidence. And so it wasn't necessarily a thing or a book. I was constantly extracting and learning from all those around me. And if I felt like, someone was older and had done a lot great things with their life, I'd ask them questions like, how did you do it? And how did you, so I was constantly juicing and learning from others. And I really think that was the big thing that I did over time to forge my own tools of self-confidence and self-belief. And I really do think that's how I pulled through.
So let's talk a little bit about The Legacy Is Me. How did that come about?
Yeah. So get ready for this one, Priscilla. This one has become the center point of all of my speeches. The Legacy Is Me comes from a dark place, but I think now is a very beautiful thing. And that is when I went to live with my grandmother from age 3 to age 15, along with her was an aunt who took care of us. And she was a big part of my, being raised and coming up as a young lady. And one of the things, and she was not the kindest lady. She would say some really wicked and vile things. And one of the things that she would often say is, to my siblings and I, like, hey guys, just so you know, your parents left no legacy behind. And just so you know, there was no legacy they left behind. It was almost daily for years. And those things, I think, could have easily broken me. But I always knew she was wrong. And that's what I mean when I say I was born this way, because no one ever said, no, Hanan, she's wrong. Now, granted, she never said it around adults. It was only just to the children that could take the abuse without another adult in the room. And so she said it constantly for years. And it wasn't until I was a nurse, a tenured nurse in my 30s, I had this week where so many amazing things happened to me over and over, back to back. Every day, something really great happened. And I had this catharsis. I was working night shift as a nurse. And I suddenly realized, wait a minute, I'm an accomplished nurse. I have a nonprofit. I'm a mother. I'm giving my kids, the best mothering I can give. I have great friends. I just started to realize all these amazing things that I was and that I had become. And I thought to myself, wait a second, she was wrong. I'm the legacy they left behind. And the legacy is me. And it gives me chills when I tell the story every time, because it literally was a light that came on. And ever since then, I've built on it, and I've trademarked it. The Legacy Is Me is what, now my slogan. And that's what it means. It means that you can break the chains that hold you. It means that you are the author of your own life. And the moment that you think you are not, or you give it to someone else, you will lose a piece of yourself. And that's when you have regret. And that's when you have thoughts that really might put you in a dark place because you didn't step up or you didn't stand up for yourself. And so I think that breaking the chains and authoring your own life is what the Legacy Is Me really means.
So for The Legacy Is Me, I know you do a lot of public speaking. So which organizations do you connect with through Legacy Is Me?
Yeah, it depends. I've done some school like graduation speeches, just sharing my story of grit, and signature talks about self-belief, and really trying to teach young people that they too don't need the support. That's really my message. Is support is wonderful, and it's great if you have parents, and it's amazing if you have great grandparents and support and all that. But my message is, if you don't have it, you can still make it. If you don't have anyone, that you can get through whatever it is that, even if it's a difficult hand of cards. So I love to share my story with younger folks who really need to hear that messages I wish I had heard as a younger person. And so actually my next one, the one I'm most excited about, is I got a CCMC, the case manager certification symposium, which is coming up in October. And I'm talking about empathetic leadership, because I'm still a nurse leader, and that is something that I practice, is empathetic leadership, and I believe in it wholeheartedly, as far as keeping your staff morale, retaining your staff. So I talk about a lot of things because I've done a lot of things. I've worn a lot of hats.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on now to your baby Earth Angels.
Yes.
Yeah, talk a little
Yes.
bit more about that. I know you mentioned that it was after the birth of your first son that you decided to start Earth Angels, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So again, in 2012, I was sort of trailblazing this. I didn't know anybody with a nonprofit. And so about a year and a half, I would say it took me to really start getting my footing of, becoming a 501c3, which really separates the boys from the men in the nonprofit world. You need it to be any kind of nonprofit. And I didn't have the funds to buy, pay legal fees to get that done. So I did it myself. Took about a year and a half to 2 to get all my paperwork in line. And then I started just with small jobs. I would raise money and send supplies. I had identified one NICU in the city, the capital of Ghana, which is Accra. There was one NICU that I had identified. They were the NICU in the city, and yet they did not have sustainable oxygen supplies for their neonatal population. So if you needed oxygen to survive, you needed an ambu bag, which is, those emergency breathing devices. So it wasn't sustainable. So these infants were tragically dying because they were not getting the sustainability they needed with the oxygen. So that was my first project, and it took me about 6 months to raise funds, and I was able to send them all of the oxygen supplies they needed. And within those few months, we saved, I think, 14 babies or so. And that was my first, like, wow, I can do this. It taught me the power of one, that even when you think, oh, it's just a little help, what can I do? And that's what I want the listeners to hear, is that whenever you think, what can I do? You have to remember that you just have to take one step and take one leap, and the rest will come. And with Earth Angels, when I saw what fruits came of that labor, it just grew. And then the hospital I was working for at the time were supporting me. They would, they had a Earth Angels bin of where they would throw all the medical supplies that are expired for US terms, but our, facilities that I was helping in Ghana could definitely utilize them. And so I got, medical supplies, baby clothes, diapers, some really high fortified formulas for those preemies that don't get to have the formula, in the NICU space. So I did a lot of that for years, and then it expanded. I moved across Africa. I did some work in the States, battered women's shelters, a myriad of things. 4 years ago, a nonprofit called Empty Bowls heard about the great work Earth Angels was doing. And their mission is all feeding, it's all feeding centric, feeding the hungry. And so they gave Earth Angels a small grant and it had to go towards a feeding initiative. And so I really had to restructure and the trajectory of the nonprofit, because I wanted to take this opportunity and for the first time build something sustainable, as opposed to, raising money to give it away, raising money to give it away, which is a lot of work. And yes, it's helpful, but there's no sustainability in that. And raising money is by far the hardest thing to do. And so with the grant, I broke ground in a rural town in Ghana called Winneba. It's a fishing town. And bought some land, broke ground, and I started a fish farm. And it's taken us about 4 years to really, finish. And even then, there's always work to be done, because we have a shoestring budget and just, working as we go. But this fish farm is our biggest project yet. And we are feeding people, providing jobs, teaching sustainable fish farming to the local agricultural students, as well as providing jobs to the locals. So it's an incredible self-sustaining project that we're currently working on.
Wow. So do you travel to Ghana like many times a year? How does that work with you being in the States?
Yeah, I wish I could go more than I do. So far, it's been once every couple of years. I was supposed to go this year, but it's just been too much on my calendar. I haven't been able to do it. I might be able to before the year ends. So what I do is, my eldest brother happened to be a fisherman, and that's part of how the idea sort of snowballed about the farm, because he too is a local to that town, and he too needed work. Employment is a really big problem over there. There's lots of poverty. Most people are living under the poverty line. The average person makes $100 a month. It's tough out there. And so my brother was one of those that too needed employment. And, he was a fisherman. And I said, look, I can, help you, but I can also give you this very important responsibility of leading and managing the farm while I'm not there. So he has become my boots on the ground, and he updates me every day. He's the manpower, and I do all of the admin and fundraising and all of the paperwork, if you will. And so I don't have to go as often as I would if I didn't have him there.
Right.
Yeah.
So are you still working on the healthcare aspect of Earth Angels, or is it both, like the fishing farm and the healthcare, or are you now focusing more on the fishing farm?
Great question. So because healthcare is really, that's my heart, is healthcare, being a nurse. I've been a nurse now 17 years. And Earth Angels mission really did start in the health space, and I don't want that to go away. So what I've done is I've partnered with, there's a local community health center in Winneba, in the town, right, very close to our farm. And what we do is we've forged a relationship with them. We ask them what their needs are, and they give us every 3 months what their needs are. And so sometimes they really need help with the surplus of people that need vaccines, and they just can't, because they too don't have the funds to serve the community, and they're supposed to serve the entire community. And so, for example, we did an Easter in April. We had an Easter health screening event, which Earth Angels totally paid for, to help the clinic out. And we had 300 mothers and babies show up, and 87 of them received head to toe physical assessments, diabetic eye assessments, infant weight. Some of these babies had never been seen by the doctor before, and Earth Angels totally funded that. And so we've taken them on as a beneficiary of our profits from the farm. So that's what we're doing right now. But the goal, the eventual vision I have, is to have a small sort of CVS, those little pop-up health clinics on the farm, because it's not just going to be a farm. Eventually it'll be so much more. And so we'll have our own, it will be more like a community center where we have classes and all sorts of things for the community. and we'll have a small health center for screenings, etc., on the premises. So yeah, I can't help, the healthcare won't ever not be part of Earth Angels.
So I'm just curious. I've never been to Ghana, but
Mm-hmm.
would you say that the healthcare is still as bad as it was during your time when you were there, or has it improved a little bit, in your opinion?
It has improved, but you need the funds. So if you're one of those, if you're one of the locals making $100 a month, you probably will succumb to your illnesses just like my parents did. Now if you have, if you're making over that and you have, decent wages, which Ghana still has typical third world, very rich and very poor, right? So the wealthy have all the access and you can get great care there if you have the money. Also, if you're in the city, which a lot of people are not, so if you're in that village, for example, where our farm is, and you need 911 and you need an ambulance to come and get you, you probably won't make it. That's how bad it is still in the rural areas, or like this hospital needing our help to screen their patients. So it depends on where you are, and it depends on how much money you have. So it's better, and all these other things.
So right now, the fishing farm is helping to sustain your nonprofit. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Well,
and that's
that's
the
good.
goal. I mean, I still have to raise money, but the goal is that eventually it'll feed itself fully. We'll sell fish to the local markets, and then that profit will pay our overhead costs and do our beneficiary work with clinics or what have you. So we're not quite there, but that is the goal.
Okay. So I want to give you the stage now to talk about the needs of your nonprofit. Like, I know you need funds, but do you need like collaboration from other people?
Yeah.
What else do you need so that we can put this out to the collective? And when this episode airs, maybe somebody can reach out to you and help you out.
Absolutely. Thank you for asking that. So we of course, like you said, always need the funding, because really we rely on the generosity of individuals like yourself. I mean, our vast majority of funds comes from people who are passionate about the mission, and $25 a month, $50 a month, and that's really how we keep the lights on the farm. And so that's our greatest need, even if it's $5 a month, whatever you can afford. And absolutely, always looking to collaborate, especially if you're a local nonprofit and are doing something similar. And if we can join efforts and not reinvent the wheel on certain things, absolutely. Eventually, I'll be taking volunteers, American and from elsewhere, to the farm to get their hands dirty, because we're doing so many things. We're planting trees to help our carbon footprint. We are, the women that we hire are the women who were previously having to take their children out of school to work to help them pay their bills. And so the women we've hired now have jobs, and their kids we put their kids in school. And so this is the kind of sustainability. The gifts of the farm are for generations to come. The gifts of this farm are immense. And so, yes, if you're out there and you want to come volunteer on the farm one day, even if you're in the States, we do mission trips where we just take folks to, and by mission, I just mean for Earth Angels. We don't have any, religious affiliation, but we do mission trips. If you want to come and give your expertise, and you're a fisherman, or you love to build, or you love to plant, I would love to hear from you.
Oh, nice. I just want to ask, you said the women put the kids in school. So I want
Yeah.
to ask, how's the education system there for children? Are
It's not,
you able to help with that as well?
so it's actually not bad. I'll give that to Ghana. Their school system is not bad. It's just not fully free, even though it's public. There's still some things that the, parents have to prepare and pay for. And so the very poor sometimes can't afford it. There's uniforms that you have to purchase. So the schooling system, I would say, is fine. It's fine. As a matter of fact, we have a lot of Ghanaians who went to just public school, didn't pay for the private school that I got to go to, and still passed with flying colors and are in universities in the States and got scholarships. So I will say that the schooling is fine. The matter is that the really poor sometimes can't afford to go, or the children need to help with the income of the house, so they're pulled from school. So that is, I think, right now, my proudest piece of what we're doing and giving back is that we now have 5 kids from 5 mothers who now have school and don't have to work to help their mom because their moms have jobs. And so I think that's probably the coolest thing that we've done and we'll continue to do, because we're about to hire another 5. And so, that's X amount more kids that are off the streets.
Nice. And I wanted to ask you, how do you get your stuff over to Ghana? What problems are you facing in the bureaucracy of trying to get items from one country to another?
Yeah. So I did that for years when I was shipping and constantly doing the hamster wheel thing, raising and shipping and raising. And actually, I will say that Ghana has a lot of deficits, but shipment there is actually pretty seamless. And because I have so much, so many contacts there and other siblings that are there that can help, I would ship, I would pay a fee, and then they would clear it over there. It actually was a seamless thing. I don't do that anymore because with the fees, it's not that it's not reliable, it's just expensive. And so I found over the years that I would rather send my management over there, the funding, and we budget and we have a project plan, and then I send the funds and they purchase over there. And that is so much more seamless, and it keeps the money with the locals. So it's a win-win. So I've stopped shipping. I only do when absolutely necessary. And when I do, it's really not, it's not one of the things that cause me heartburn, I'll say.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So apart from your nonprofit,
Yeah.
are there any other programs that you offer to the collective? I mean, with your speaking gig and your nonprofit, do you do coaching like in that area?
I've been asked to coach over the years. And so recently I have started to offer it just by word of mouth, because I've been pushed to do that quite a bit, especially with sharing my story of how I made it and how I found success. And so I do have a couple of clients that I coach, but it's literally just starting. And it's going really well. I enjoy it so much, because there's so much that I have to offer I feel like in my lifetime, I've lived a few different lives. And so, yeah, I have a lot of, words of wisdom to offer. And so I'm literally just starting that. So that's funny you ask. I have 2 clients and we're coaching, and it's going really well.
So what do you coach them on? Like self-empowerment or
Yes.
transformation?
Yes, this the power of self-belief. So I have a short it's an ebook, and I'll send it to you to give your listeners for free. It's called The 9 Tools I Wish My Mother Had Taught Me, the tools that built my confidence. So yes, so I do coach, and I provide usually it's about self-confidence. It's typically on the art of self-belief, the tools that I forged along the way. And then slowly it turns into other things, because they have so many questions. So for now, it starts with self-belief and those tools that built my confidence, and it'll transform from there.
Nice. So where can people get in touch with you if they want to connect or work with you?
So thelegacyisme.com is my speaking page, and then earthsangels.org is the nonprofit page.
Okay. Do you have socials? Are you on social media?
I do. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Instagram. I'm sure you'll share the handles, so I don't need to. It would be hard for everyone to remember. But I'm on Instagram, TikTok. I usually share like daily inspo on TikTok. Some real authentic real life stories and just reminders of staying positive. Yes, so I'm all over social media. You just have to Google Hanan Merabi and you'll see me everywhere.
Nice.
So yeah, easy to find.
Okay, so we have a couple minutes left. I have a signature closing question here that I ask all my guests.
Okay.
So this is the question. What is your closing message for humanity to help in our collective healing and empowerment?
What a beautiful question. I would say that your best is good enough and that nobody is better than you. You may be better than nobody else, but nobody's better than you. And that even when you have no support and you don't have, an army or a village behind you or around you, belief in yourself can get you through every single scenario in this lifetime. And that I see failure as a baby learning to walk. They fall down, they stand up, they fall down and stand up. They'll do it until they figure it out. And every time I'm down on myself, that's what I remember, that I will fall, but I will always get up. And I think that is the testament of my life, is that regardless of what I went through, I was always able to stand up. And I think that is the biggest reminder for folks out there, that you are enough and you can do it and you can author your own life.
Love it. Such encouraging and wise words. We all need to hear this, right?
Yes.
Because the world is kind of crazy right now. So.
It is. And if you allow those demons to sink in, it can take you down and you can stay there. And that's very easy. That can happen to any of us. It's very easy to happen. And so it's up to you to look in the mirror, once a day and just remind yourself, I'm enough, I got this, and this too shall pass. Whatever it is you're going through, this too shall pass.
I love it. So thank you, Hanan, for being here and for sharing your wisdom and your strength and your power, because, man, you're a very powerful soul.
Thank you. Thank you, Priscilla. I
And
really enjoyed this time.
I just want to thank you for all that you're doing for the collective, especially the people in Ghana and even people in the States, right?
Yes.
So thank you so much for all that you're doing for us.
Thanks again.
For everybody who's watching and listening, thank you for your time. And until next time, bye for now.